All right, thanks, Olivia. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the latest in our users group series. For those of you who've joined us before, you're familiar with this. If you're new, this is the first session that you've joined. This program was put together specifically for you, Cloudingo users, to provide us with some feedback, to learn something from us, to engage with one another. And it's sort of occasional, every few months we have a session for you. We set aside an hour for this session, but it's going to be much shorter than that. We're thinking 20, 30 minutes tops. I know that nobody has the attention span to sit through a webinar for that long, but we did allow that amount of time. A couple of housekeeping items. The session is being recorded and will be sent out to all of you at its end once we've been able to produce the video. And we're also, because we have a lot of interest in this session, we're using a webinar platform instead of a meeting platform. And there's some drawbacks to that, which are somewhat regrettable. What that means is that I can't see you, you can only see me. So I'm just talking at my screen, unfortunately. It also means that the kind of engagement that I typically like, the interactivity that I usually like in a users group session is a little bit more challenging. But we do have the chat window open, and Olivia is standing by, as well as Jenny Boston. I know many of you out there are familiar with both Olivia and Jenny. They are standing by to field any questions. So as cumbersome as that may be, please feel free to use the chat window to answer or to ask questions, and we will do our best to answer all of them. If we don't get to your questions, we will follow up after the session. So don't think that your question is going to get lost in cyberspace. And then the other thing is you are also welcome and free to reach out directly to us. Remember, in the upper right corner of the Cloudingo dashboard is a question mark icon, and under there's a link to file a support case. It doesn't necessarily need to be a support case. You don't have to be having a problem with Cloudingo for you to submit a question through that function in the application. So we welcome you to do that, and that actually gets distributed to an entire team of people, so you never wait very long for a response. All right. Olivia, any other housekeeping items that I forgot?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay. All right. So today's session is about the data quality dashboard, and I'll add a few little other tidbits to that, but we're specifically going to talk about the data quality dashboard. So let me share my screen, and I don't know, bear with me. Hang on one sec. There, Olivia, is the screen showing?
Yep.
And it's Cloudingo?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Also, if anybody's having trouble hearing me, or if you don't see the screen, you might post a message in the chat window. We'll do our best to help you. Keep in mind, though, that as long as I know that Olivia is seeing my screen and hearing me, that the application seems to be working, so it might be on your side, and I apologize for that. But again, there will be a recording of the session. So one of the things that we added to Cloudingo within the last few months, this was maybe before the holidays, I'm not sure when it quite came out, was the data quality dashboard. And that's what you're looking at here. This is enabled in all of your Cloudingo instances, and it's just accessed through the data quality icon in the navigation menu at the far left. Just click view. So let me explain to you a little bit about why we created this. We created this for a couple of reasons. Most of you tend to think of Cloudingo as a dedupe application or a convert or something like that. And so you think about the dedupe dashboard, you think about those filters, and then it sort of stops there. But Cloudingo actually does a whole lot more. And when we built the Cloudingo platform, it wasn't just to be a dedupe platform. It was really around managing data quality at large in your data set. As part of that, we recognized that it would help to have some analysis, some sort of high-level analytical view of the state of your data. And out of that grew what we're now calling the data quality dashboard. So let me orient you just a little bit to this dashboard. Some of you have probably already looked at it, and maybe it makes sense, but I want to give you sort of the Cloudingo side of things so you can understand it. The first thing I'll show you is that there is a toggle switch here that you can toggle between platforms. So if you have a sandbox connected, or if you have multiple Salesforce instances connected, you can just toggle to the dashboard and the reporting that is relevant to that specific instance. All right, so let's jump in down here to the details. The first thing you're going to see is your data quality score. So let me explain to you what that means. The data quality score is based on some proprietary analysis and algorithms that we have developed. And excuse me, I'm going to cough. I've been recovering from a cold, so I apologize for that. Excuse me. So the data quality score is based on our analysis, some internal analysis under the hood. It's based on some basic dedupe analysis filters. It's based on the structure of your data when it comes to things like pick list options and inactive values, inactive owners, those kinds of things. And so we come up with a score. Right? Now I want you to think about this score as just a guideline. For those of you who are type A, who were really driven in school and looked at your grades and calculated your GPA to the 1,000th of a point, and I say that because that was me, you will probably never see a 100% on your data quality. Now, the reason for that is that we are making some assumptions and we are analyzing data in a very generalized way to establish that score, knowing that for each individual instance, you have your own operational needs and your own sort of duplicate definitions and your own reasons for managing your data in a particular way. So you will probably never see a score 95% or above. But if you're somewhere between 75 and 85%, you're doing great. That's a really good sign. Now, the one nice thing about this is you can also see the trends. And I'm going to pop open the trends for you here. You can see there's a little bit of an uptick right here over the last few weeks, and I can explain that. On our side, I have done recently a bunch of data changes, and you're going to see this in some of the other elements of the data quality dashboard. Those data changes that had to do with our marketing automation platform, as well as our Salesforce instance, had an impact on the data quality score. And you can see that there was a little bit of an uptick. Now, it's kind of nice to see this because you can see trends over time, and these graphics are useful for if you need to report to your management or your C-suite and show them exactly what you're doing with Cloudingo, or just in terms of what Salesforce is doing for you and how the data is living in that Salesforce instance. So again, very high level in terms of the data quality score. But in addition to the data quality score, we wanted to give our users some options for things that they can actually work on in terms of raising that data quality score. So now there's a lot of things, but we have, as part of this dashboard, what we call fix-it utilities. And that's what you see right over here in this summary section of top issues and actions. Now, some of yours are going to look a little bit different, but you're always going to see an option for the inactive pick list values and the inactive owners. And then some of you might also see the enable, undo, restore, or enable a real-time filter, or if you're in a multi-user account and you haven't set up multi-users in the account, you might see some of those actions in this section down below here. But let's focus first on these two items, and let me explain to you why we added them to the data quality score. In our history of working with data quality and thinking about managing the data in Salesforce and working on deduping and converting records and just making Salesforce work better for you, two of the most common issues we have seen that prevent or block the work that Cloudingo is trying to do is inactive pick lists or inactive record owners. And that is based on some Salesforce governance regulations that it does. So let me give you a couple of examples. If you are attempting to merge duplicate records that are owned by inactive users, Salesforce requires that you actually update ownership on those records before it will allow the merge. And if you don't update the ownership, the merge fails. Similarly with inactive pick lists, if you have an inactive value in a pick list and you're trying to update or merge that record, Salesforce says, no, you can't do that unless you also update the pick list value. Right? So what happens then is that You might be submitting these merges time and time again. They're failing each time. And if you don't have your activity stream window open here, if you have that folded up and you can't see it, you don't realize that those failures are happening. If you're not checking that report, you don't realize those failures are happening. So again, you're just processing data. It's a higher level, longer term data quality issue. And so we've given you some utilities to work on that. These again do also impact your data quality score. Let me scroll down here and show you a little bit about how you can manage this. I'm going to start with the inactive owners. So here's the summary. Down below that, here's a specific section about inactive owners. And we've got this ranked by the individual inactive users who own the most records. Right down here is a little fix it button. So if I click that fix it button, it's going to, oh, apologies. I was logged in for too long. Bear with me just a moment. There we go. Okay. Just click on fix it. And you've got two options up here. So some of you may remember that inactive owner mapping has been a part of the Cloudingo platform for a long time. We have simplified that, and we've also given you, apologies again. We might be having some connectivity issues. We're expecting storms here in Dallas. All right. So inactive owner mapping. We have simplified it, made it a little more flexible, made it easier to manage, and given you two options for managing ownership of records. Here you see the options up at the top. The first thing you can do is just map your owners. So right in here, you can look at an inactive user, you can identify the new user and map it. And that mapping is stored within the Cloudingo platform. And that mapping comes into play when records that are owned by inactive users are subject for merge or convert or any of the other processes that you might be running in Cloudingo. And at that moment, Cloudingo will then update the user so that that merge or convert or whatever it is actually flows through seamlessly and succeeds instead of generates a failure error. All right, that's the first option. The second option is to map those owners, map the new owners, and just go ahead and update all the records. Now, typically, this is the option that I would recommend, but you might have some use cases where you don't actually want to reassign historic records. I typically like to keep my database clean. I like all of my records to be owned by an active user, and so I usually do go to the trouble and update those. That said, I don't always update ownership to, for example, a sales or a marketing rep who might be working those records. If it's old historic data, sometimes I'll just update it to an admin user or an identity user so that it's still active and we can manage the data from a Cloudingo standpoint, but it's not working its way into various triggers and workflows and lead assignment rules and those sorts of things. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back to the dashboard. That's owner mapping. The next thing I'm going to show you is the inactive pick lists. Again, here's the summary here. We've got this nice graphic down here, and you can sort of hover over and you can see each object, and it will show you the fields that have inactive values that are currently in use. Again, same thing as the inactive owner mapping. You can click on the fix it button, and you've got two options where you can map it. Again, if you just map it, that map is stored in Cloudingo. And when those records come up for a different Cloudingo action, merge, convert, whatever it might be, the pick list value is updated so that that process succeeds. The other option is to map and update. Again, that's the one I recommend. I typically like to keep things current and updated, but you might have some business reasons for not doing so. So you map the new value, and you can actually, at that moment, update all those records. Okay. And as you do that, you'll see that data quality score updating as well. One thing to note, the data quality score, because it is an analysis-heavy process, only runs once a week. So if you do some actions, don't expect your data quality score to immediately change. It will change on the next scheduled run. And I think that scheduled run varies based on the server bank that you're on. So I don't even know that we highlight what that date is. All right, so again, general analysis of your data, the quality of your data, the state of your current data set, giving you some actions on how you can improve that through managing your inactive pick list values or your inactive record owners, some other steps that you can take to improve your data management. Let's just jump down here a little bit more and we'll see some other options that are on the data quality dashboard. Again, the idea here is to give you a high-level view. These are information, this is information that you can provide to your management teams, to other stakeholders who don't necessarily have an active role in managing Cloudingo, but would like to know how Salesforce is being used and what the current state is. So duplicates by object. Remember I told you the data quality score, part of it is analyzed based on some generalized filters that we run in the background to analyze your data. Similarly, the duplicates by object, that report just breaks things down by the main objects that you have running in your Salesforce instance and in your Cloudingo instance. Again, these are based on our experience and our expertise and what typically counts as a duplicate. But how we've defined those duplicates does not necessarily align with how you as individual users of Cloudingo define them in your operational needs internally. Again, this is just a high-level view to give you a sense for what things look like. Very similar to when you first set up your Cloudingo account and we presented you with that very first dashboard to give you some idea of what you're going to deal with. Down below, just a few more items, and then I'm going to jump into some related things that have to do with the data quality dashboard. Required field usage is a report that shows you where you have fields that are listed as required, but your old historic data hasn't been updated to have values in those fields. And sometimes there's other ways that you can create data where required fields aren't populated. It's not a great example because our data set is pretty clean, but you can see right here on the opportunity object, we've got 5% of our opportunity records that have required fields that are blank or empty. Again, that's another way for you to raise the quality of your data, to make sure that your data is complete, and to ensure that as you go through various data management processes, converts, dedupes, imports, and things like that, that you don't get blocked because you don't have a value in some required field. Jumping down a few more. Over here, the new and modified records analysis is, it's just a sense for data trends in your data set. Again, high level view, it gives you an idea for what's happening with your data. And this is particularly useful when you're a multi-user environment. It's a way for whoever your owner admins of your Cloudingo account are to keep an eye on what's happening with the data to make sure that one of your users hasn't run a massive process and changed a bunch of data that you weren't aware of or that you weren't prepared to manage. And so you can see, as I said, I told you earlier in my example when I showed you the trends of our data quality score having gone up slightly, you can see down here in our data trends where there were thousands of new lead records added. And again, that was partly because of some work I was doing with our marketing automation system. And when I click over to the modified records, you can see that there was a huge spike in contact records being modified. And I can tell you that the modification that was happening on those contact records was that I was in fact updating ownership for records that were owned by inactive users because we had a lot of other processes that were running and that inactive owner on those records was blocking those records from being a part of those various processes. Okay. Last thing I'll point out is the admin user ratio. This is just an analysis of the number of Salesforce admin users versus non-admin users in your Salesforce instance. And the reason we've given you this is that, you know, a lot of times a smaller organization, you might have 10 users and every single one of them is an admin because you've never worried about Salesforce profiles. Or you might have one admin that is servicing 150 Salesforce users. Again, it's just a way for you to get a sense internally for who has the controls on the Salesforce side and who your users are and who you might be servicing. Just a little bit for an awareness for what could potentially be happening in your data set and how it's being managed. Okay, so that is the data quality dashboard in a nutshell. I hope that you've taken time to take a look at yours or that after this section you will. I do want to show you a couple of things that are related to data quality that aren't necessarily highlighted on the dashboard itself, but that are useful tools and useful bits of information for you to use in managing your Salesforce data. And the first thing I'm going to show you is the field analysis report. So it's just right under the reports icon. We're going to go to field analysis. I'm actually not going to run a new report, but I'll show you how to run one. So you just start the wizard, you pick your objects, and you tell which analysis you want to run, and then you save it, and Cloudingo will do that analysis. And when it's done, it will generate the report, and you can download it here. I'm going to pop up this report. Now let me explain to you what this report actually is. A field analysis report runs through your Salesforce instance and looks at all of the fields that are on the selected object. And it will tell you what the type of field is, what its length might be, but more importantly, it tells you how many records are actually using that field and the percentage used. And you can see over here, we've got some that are 100%, we've got some that are only at 75%. We've got a few down here that are only 1%. And as you scroll down, you see all of those fields. Now, why would this be useful? It's useful in a couple of ways. One, if you have fields that hold important data that are tied to your analytics, or perhaps more importantly, that are tied to your AI initiatives, but only a small or a limited percentage of your records actually have values in those fields, there might be some backfilling that you need to do. Another useful reason for this report is that if you just have really messy page layouts, or you have data that is split across multiple fields that could easily be consolidated into a single field, maybe with a pick list or something like that. There are ways of cleaning up those page layouts, reducing the number of used fields in Salesforce, particularly for some orgs. We work with a lot of clients where they're at the limit of available fields. I think typically it's 800 in Salesforce per object. That may sound like a lot, but I can't tell you the number of customers I've worked with who are actually at that limit, and they have to find ways when they need a new field to identify an old field that they could drop off of. So this analysis gives you that sense. Again, it does feed in a sort of indirect way into your data quality. So I would encourage you to run this periodically and just kind of get a sense for what fields you're using, what may be unnecessary, what you could do to clean up your page layouts, or to just free up some fields in your data set. All right, the last thing I'm going to show you is just the reports dashboard. Now, the reports dashboard has been a part of Cloudingo almost since the very beginning. And most of these reports are post-merge reports. Again, useful information if you need to report to management or your C-suite about what you're doing with Cloudingo. But I'm going to highlight 3 specific reports. There are many. You can go here into the run reports. There's a whole bunch of them in there that you can run. I'm just going to highlight 3 as soon as it loads. The 3 that I'm going to highlight are the duplicates eliminated report. And here you can see this. Nice graphic representation, but we can also get the details of this by going to the menu in the upper right corner of the filter graphic, and we can export that. We can also change options if you want to look at a larger date range and so on. Okay. Next down is the merge convert report. Very similar to the duplicates eliminated report, but this report gets much more granular. And this is a report that I actually use on a daily basis. So here you can see on the graphic that all the filters are listed down below, and you can see how much data was managed by each filter. But more importantly, if I go in here to the full report, I'm going to get a spreadsheet version of all of the merges and converts and other things that were happening that I've been running with Cloudingo. And they're all going to be on rows, and it's going to include those record IDs. So it's a history of what you've actually done with Cloudingo, and it's very useful for troubleshooting. You can identify which records were merged into what the master records that remain in Salesforce, and so on. You can even see the errors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great report. I encourage you to use that if you have questions about something that was done, particularly when you're doing mass jobs in your Salesforce instance. It's really hard to track that stuff, but there's always a history of it right here in these reports. And then the last report I'm going to show you is the activity stream errors report. This is an incredibly useful report. Remember, I told you about the activity stream that shows up over here on the right margin of your Cloudingo dashboard. Probably about 75 of our customers collapse this and they don't even see it. So when things fail or there are failed merges, they're not even aware because they don't see the notifications over here in the activity stream. But this report is a report of those alerts that you see in the activity stream. Again, this can also be exported into a spreadsheet version that is searchable and sortable. It gives you tons of detail about the record IDs, the filter, what the failure was, and very often you're going to see things like inactive pick list needs to be updated and that's why it failed, or inactive ownership needs to be updated. So again, very easy to identify and do your own troubleshooting for managing the problems you might have in managing data via Cloudingo. All right, so we're coming up on just about 30 minutes. That actually took a little bit longer than I expected it to. I'm going to go back to the data quality dashboard just so you can see that. And I'll just pause for a moment and I'm going to check in with Jenny and Olivia to see if there's any questions that you wanted to handle as part of the session, or if you would just like to hold those and we'll respond either through the chat window or via email after the fact. Again, if you have questions and you didn't have a chance to ask them or they didn't get answered as part of the chat, we will, I promise you, we will follow up. And do not hesitate to use the submit a case option up there in the upper right corner of Cloudingo. The other thing I'll say is that Cloudingo is always an ongoing development process. We're always adding to it, we're always enhancing it. If there are things that you think would be valuable and helpful to see on this data quality dashboard summary overview, let us know. So much of what we've put into Cloudingo has come from our customers. And I want you to know how seriously we take your input and how much we value it. So if you have suggestions, if there are things that you individually would find useful on this dashboard in managing your Salesforce instance and in managing Cloudingo, do let us know. And we will look at that, we'll analyze it, we'll probably want to talk to you in detail. And more than likely, there's a good chance that stuff's going to work its way into Cloudingo. All right. Olivia, anything that you want to bring, any questions that you want to bring to the fore as part of the session, or do you just want to hold those for post follow-up?
Yep, we have a couple quick ones. Can you please show us how to expand the activity stream?
Yes. Okay, so the activity stream, I'm actually just going to go back to the, dedupe dashboard because that's usually where you're at. Okay, so the activity stream, where is it? Why is it not folding up? There we go. You'll have this little bell icon up there at the top, and you can just click it and it'll toggle open and closed. But if you pin it with the little tack, it's just always open. That makes sense?
Easy.
So very easy to do. I highly recommend that you either pin it open or that as you're running a job, you pop it open and take a look at it periodically.
We're getting a lot of good feedback, and we're also getting questions about like adding reports to the data quality dashboard. We're a team of 4 that cover each a different region. Can we set a filter at the top of the dashboard so they can, each of us can have a filter for their region?
So great questions, and that's one of those suggestions that I'm going to take to our products team. Currently, so this is data quality dashboard version 1, and it is currently not customizable. So you can't move around these tiles or add things to this dashboard or customize this dashboard in any way. I fully expect that as it matures and as we work through how people are using this and how our customers are using this, we're going to add additional features and additional flexibility to it. But I will definitely take that suggestion to our products team. So thank you, whoever offered that suggestion. I want you to know it's heard. It's not the first time. We've even internally had conversations about, can this be customized? Can I rearrange this? Can I change what actually shows up here? And the answer is right now, no, but I feel strongly that we will get there in time.
Agreed. One more. For inactive users, which objects are reviewed for this?
Oh, so in terms of the inactive record owners report, it's going to focus on the main objects that Cloudingo touches, so leads, contacts, and accounts. If you have some custom objects added, or personal accounts, if you have personal accounts, if you have custom objects enabled in your Cloudingo instance, it will also include those. It doesn't. You can do some data maintenance on ownership for non-standard objects to the data maintenance option. So that would be the mass update features. So you can update ownership there, but it wouldn't appear on the inactive record owners chart or count unless it was an object that Cloudingo was actually merging or converting. I hope that was clear. It was probably not the most clear, but.
We have a list. We can follow up directly to check in.
Okay.
So yeah, and then just one quick shout out. Someone said, I love the quality dashboard. It has already proven to be a great way to track data cleanup efforts, but also to detect issues when importing new data. Our quality score went from 79 to 65 when we imported records from onboarding a new market to our Salesforce environment. So it's a great use case. Right there.
Oh yeah, that is really interesting. That would have made for a really interesting chart too, because what you would have seen is a dip, which is what you want to avoid. That presumably when that customer went and managed that data that they had imported, it went back up, or hopefully. All right, so I hope that this session was interesting and useful to you, and that we didn't take too much of your time and bore you. I know it's getting on towards lunch in North America, so you're probably hungry for lunch. Again, I welcome and am sincerely interested in your input and your feedback, so please send that to us. If you have questions, again, send those to us as well. We are here for you, and we value you as Cloudingo users. We'll have another session probably in a few months. You'll get a message from Olivia. If you have general comments about our users group sessions, send those our way too. Send those to Olivia. If you have suggestions for topics you'd like to see in sessions, we'd love to hear those too. All right. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. I wish you well, and we'll see you on the next users group. Thanks, folks.
Bye, everyone.